But first, let's go back to Chicago. Polls are open there. 9 candidates running. The big news this morning, Lori Lightfoot might not reach what looks like is going to be a runoff election on April the 2nd between the two top vote getters. For more on all this, let's welcome in Project 21 National Advisory Board member and radio host Christopher Arps and former Trump campaign aide and Newsmax contributor Rick Gates. Great to have you both back. Chris, you're in St. Louis, city with a lot of the same problems as Chicago. Is today the beginning of the end for Lori Lightfoot?
I think it is, and it should be the beginning of the end. Lori Lightfoot is arguably one of the worst mayors in the country. Crime is spiked out of control, especially the murder rate. Chicago has a higher per capita murder rate than Los Angeles and New York. There's a big field running. She has to make the runoff for the April election, and at this point, the polls are saying that she's not going to probably make it.
Rick, lots of vote-in mailing, lots of early voting. Typically, what's the turnout for a mayoral race?
Municipal elections not very high. The last municipal election Chicago had was about 46%. So out of 1.5 million registered voters in Chicago, not a great turnout. And interestingly, that's the trend that you're seeing today as well. There has been higher early voting turnout. Interestingly, there's about 245,000 mail-in ballots. 100,000 of those have not been turned in. Watch for the late night numbers to come in. Let's see if anything happens with those mail-in ballots that haven't been submitted yet. But at the end of the day, when you look at the voting over the last couple of days, Paul Dallas seems to be pulling away with the lead. So now I think you're jockeying for, kind of second, third, and fourth place.
Yeah, if you believe the polls, she's in third place in the most recent poll. 4 candidates are separated by just about 6 points. Rick, do you think she makes the runoff?
I don't think she makes the runoff. I don't think she has the numbers, and I don't think the voters are going to come out. When you have a field of 9 people, that is going to take votes away from each one of them, obviously, but for her in particular, that's going to take a substantial number of votes away. I don't think she's going to make the cut.
Yeah, and odd years are typically off years, so voter turnout going to be very important in Chicago today. We'll keep an eye on that. Polls are open. Yesterday, we played you that soundbite from the weekend with Jill Biden saying that she expects her husband to run again. She made those comments in Africa. Yesterday, she was asked to clarify those comments. Take a listen.
Your husband was asked in an interview if he was running, and he joked that he had to call you to find out.
Was this recently?
It was recent.
Oh. I must have missed it.
So we're going to the source. Well, where do things stand? When's an announcement coming?
Well, he said he intends to run. So nothing's been planned yet. I think, he's been so busy with being in Ukraine, handling some of the crises at home. So I think, he's putting that first. He's putting America's business before he's putting his own.
Okay, so she was a little more careful that time, yeah. Chris. The New York Times with a really interesting idea yesterday. Joe Biden should turn the choice of his running mate over to delegates at the convention in Chicago, coincidentally. Mr. Biden would do well to follow what Franklin Roosevelt did in 1944 and let the delegates at the convention select his running mate. The concern has always been Kamala Harris. If you look at actuary tables, Joe Biden would be pushing 87 if he served a full second term. Could something like this actually happen?
I don't think it could necessarily happen. I think what this is the administration and Democratic operatives letting off a balloon to see how this would work among the Democratic electorate. As we know, if they did remove the first Asian, black, female vice president from the ticket, you would have a revolt from African Americans. I think what this mainly is a shot across the bow to Kamala Harris that you need to get your stuff together, get your act together, and be a contributor to this team, because right now you're an anchor to the Biden-Harris team.
Yeah, Rick, can we go back to what the First Lady said, that the president is focused on crises here at America, which clearly she's listening to the narrative from people saying that he's not focused on what's happening. He has not gone to East Palestine. We have the border crisis. And listening to her interview, I almost was wondering, is he going to run again? Because she seemed very reluctant to give any information.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, they're going to defend, the work. I think I heard in an earlier interview that she said that he's not finished yet with all the work that he's been doing, so he needs another term. I think this all political pontificating. I think at the end of the day, Could there be a possibility that you let the convention choose? Of course. Will it likely happen? Probably not. The reason you choose a vice presidential running mate is typically for electoral votes. That's, usually where you're trying to get to win that state.
Yes.
Kamala is damaged goods. I think this is a clear sign that a lot of the Democrats behind the scenes working on Plan B, I think this is part of that effort. And I think you're going to see more issues, more events like this that arise over the next several months, calling into question not only her, but then also whether Joe Biden runs. And the only way you're going to find that out, because he doesn't have to announce for a while, let's see who else puts their hat in the ring. You need another high-profile Democrat to say, I'm jumping in the race. That'll upset the entire apple cart.
Yes, because Marianne Williamson, I don't think she's going to cause any problems for Joe Biden, at least right now, although that could change. Stranger things have happened. But we're asking these questions because at times, more often than not, our 80-year-old commander-in-chief seems confused. Take a look at the president yesterday.
And enjoy the reception which starts after the next performance that's about to be announced. All right, who's going to announce? They're going to announce it? All right.
Chris, you think he'd be more rested? He had just spent the last 3 days relaxing at his beach house in Delaware.
Yeah, and that's the reason why so many people on the Democratic side are worried about him running for president. This is not going to be 2020 where he can campaign from his basement because of COVID-19. He's going to have to get out, do 7, 8, 9 campaign events a day. And with that performance that we just saw, Joe Biden is not capable.
Chris, quick follow for you. I've been saving this one for you because you live in Cori Bush's district, don't you, my friend?
Yes.
Out there in St. Louis. So Cori Bush, member of the squad, outspoken advocate for defunding the police. She apparently earlier this month married a member of her security detail, somebody that she's been paying right around $60,000 annually for private security services. Do you think that Cori Bush will now change her position on defunding the police?
No, I do not. I think she probably married her security guard so they can keep the money in the family because she is paying him out of her campaign funds. So now they can just keep the money in the family.
Get this. Her first year in Congress, Cori Bush, who is an advocate for defunding the police, spent over $600,000 on private security. $600,000.
That's a lot of security.
That is a lot of money for a lot of
And
security.
she told us to get over it.
And she just got hitched. Chris Arps, Rick Gates, good seeing you today. Thank you.
Thank you,
Good to
guys.
see you guys.